Limitless is about you kind of experiencing different things to challenge yourself. Is that a good thing to say?
Yeah, it was. I've done 2 seasons of it, and then I did an individual episode with my dad. But it was a show about longevity and the science of longevity. In the first season, I was very much the guinea pig in the name of science. Then I would be thrown into, like say, so an episode on cold water exposure. Let's show the benefits, and you can swim in the Arctic, for 5 minutes and, try and survive. Or you can, the benefits of muscle mass for the brain, and we'll do a strength episode. So climb a 200-meter damn wall. And so it was all these kind of, pretty extreme examples of representing the science we were talking about. The second season I had a bit more agency with, and it was great, and I was less of a guinea pig, and I had a bit more of a sort of educated opinion around each topic. But I wouldn't say I set out to do it I didn't know. It was just sort of came my way and sounded like a fun thing to do. And
yeah, it seems really interesting to go through those moments and just to like almost have a buffet of things. You're like, I'm going to try these and see what it's like. What was one of your biggest takeaways from it, like as a practice for yourself? If there were any, or was there enough of an experience there even to have or was it too much of a production to take away?
Oh no, there was a lot. A profound effect on me, especially the second season and the first season without me realizing what was occurring. Like there was all the obvious things about, strength training and cognitive health and cold water, hot exposure, fasting and so on. But the episode I did with my dad called A Road Trip to Remember was the most profound one because he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's about 4 or 5 years ago.
And he was genetically predisposed to it, right?
Yeah.
He and your mom.
Yeah. And that's how we found out because I did my blood work on that show and found out that I had 2 copies of the ApoE4 gene, which is you get a copy from your mum, a copy from your dad, either a 2 or 3 or 4.
They both gave you a copy?
They both gave me a copy, but they both gave me the worst copy, which is the 4, which meant I was a 4-4, which is like 1 in, I think, 1,000 people have. But so I remember being with my dad and telling him about it and going, I don't know if this is a kind of it's not a death sentence, it's not a predeterministic gene, but it's like a big warning sign. And he said, oh, don't worry, mate, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and how many times am I going to have to tell him about it if he's predisposed to Alzheimer's?
Well, but he didn't, we didn't know he was. And then 5 years later, he got diagnosed. And I remember sitting there telling him, don't worry, Dad, we'll figure it out. And so we went on this journey, it's called A Road Trip to Remember. It's this thing called Reminiscence therapy where you go back into your past, stimulate memories and experiences to stimulate the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that dementia is attacking.
Oh, dang, your dad's Joe Biden? That's crazy, dude.
We're spending time with him. It was kind of a love letter to him. And it's not, I was kind of hoping for a silver bullet to fix it, but it became more about connection. It became more about like the things I got to say to him and ask him about his concerns and fears around the disease. I probably wouldn't have asked him otherwise. And so it forced this kind of really beautiful, intimate series of conversations and gave him some agency, I think, because they begin to feel like, they're a patient or they're a burden, and all of a sudden this was about him. And I watched the shift and the big one being social connection. The most important thing I took away from both of those seasons was support group, friendships and connection. And the people in blue zones, where people live over 100 or the most centurions in the population within regions around the world, the commonality is having a wonderful sense of community and a wonderful support network. And then whether or not they drank alcohol or smoked or whatever, it was like, the lack of, or the reduction in stress due to support networks and friendships. And
wow. Well, yeah, they say that in recovery too. I'm in a lot of recovery communities, and they say that connection is the opposite of addiction.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
wow.
That connection. It's like, I mean, I was in a meeting this morning, like a Zoom meeting, and it's like, I'm sitting there just listening to guys share what's going on with them that's real.
Yeah. And
some of them say things that I've always wanted to say, and I didn't know I could, but I couldn't make the words, and then they made the words for me. And so there's a part of me that like starts to feel like, okay, that's not a crazy pieces of a thought that you've had.
Yeah.
That's a real thing, and somebody else just put it together for you. And but yeah, just being able to connect, they say, is the opposite of addiction.
Yeah.
Bring that back up, the blue zones. I've never heard of this.
It's where there's the most amount of people who have
Live to be 100?
Live to be 100, yeah. And I think there's like Japan, somewhere in Italy.
Yeah, we got Okinawa, Japan.
Yeah.
Ikaria, Greece. Sardinia, Italy. Nicoya, and that's
And the
Costa
United
Rica.
States as well, yeah.
And Loma Linda. But hold on, there's none over by Australia? You guys didn't get one?
Yeah, I don't know if they skipped us.
Probably because of the dangerous species.
Probably the danger, all the things that try and kill us, yeah.
Yeah,
or we're too busy backpacking to the places you pulled up.
You guys are too busy over there making people happy in those places, probably. Blue zones are regions of the world where people have unusually long and healthy lives. The many residents reaching age 90 to 100 while staying relatively free of major chronic disease. Researchers use blue zone to describe geographically limited areas where rates of centenarians are far higher than expected and older adults remain active and independent. That's a huge thing, that they remain active and independent.
Well, work still working as well, like still having some form of purpose.
Right. Purpose is huge. We talk about that all the time in here.
Yeah.
That if people lose their purpose, then what do we have?
Do you ever read Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl?
I have read that.
Yeah. That's, the purposeful suffering, he calls it. But watching people in, when he was in the prison camp in Auschwitz, how, because he was a psychoanalyst or a therapist, and he went in and people all under the same horrific circumstances, environment, and why some people's body would give up and others wouldn't. And it was often when they found out that a loved one or family had been killed or died, their spirit, their soul, their body gave up. And so he produced logotherapy, which is about sort of giving a purpose behind whatever adversity you're facing and giving a sense of meaning to whatever the suffering is you're going through. But again, with the centurions, people who it's not retiring, basically, and that doesn't mean work yourself in. There's a difference between working yourself into the grave, but also, the work could be you have a garden to maintain, you have a you have
grandchildren
class
to keep tabs on. You have you have a trip to plan. You're helping with one of your children's activities. Yeah, I think that a lot with my own mom as she gets older. It's like, I want her to be free of things. If she doesn't want to work, she likes to work. She delivers for Amazon and stuff. She just loves it. She's like, I'll call her and she's like, I'm just sitting in the lot of, or she'll deliver for like Whole Foods, different, just kind of chain places or something.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm just sitting here in the lot, just waiting for a route or whatever, And I just picture her in her van. She's just sitting there. She's 70 something, and she's just waiting to, deliver a catalytic converter to some guy across town. With your father, how is he doing today?
He's good. He look, compared to, there were a couple other family members and close by folks that were going through or had the same diagnosis around the same time who were in a sort of catatonic vegetable state. He's he could sit here with us and talk to us, and you might not even know, and you spend enough time, and it's the short-term memories, and then it's the wrong kind of stress that then is really evident, like stress for him training in the gym and so on, and solving a crossword puzzle, great, but like not finding his keys and then losing things and then beating himself up about it.
Oh yeah.
Then they'll watch his memory go really bad. But
wow, so stress is such a big activator.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, he went down. He rides motorbikes and used to race motorbikes, and went down to put some gas in the petrol tank, and then it wouldn't start. And so Mum came, picked him up, went back home. He got home and he said, "Yeah, I needed the key." And she's like, "No, it just didn't start." And he got the spare key, went back down. Didn't start again. He's like, God. And he did that 3 times for the day. By the time then I was at work, I got home and I went and I said, look, I'll just come pick him up, pick the bike up. I put the bike on the back of the car, and he was like, all right, so we're going to your place to get my car, aren't we? And I said, no, Dad, we're taking your bike home. And he's like, what bike? And he had twice in this 10-minute drive, turn around and see the bike in the back of the truck. And that was as strong as I've seen it, and as sort of confronting as it's been. But then the next day, once that problem had been solved, he could sort of, there was a calm and it was better. But he's doing good, man.
What's his name?
Craig.
Hey, Craig.
Yeah.
What's up, Craig?
Yeah.
Cheers from the U.S., mate.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Good day, sir. And what's his trade been? His life?
He was
a cattleman.
Well, he worked in child protection for most of his career, and then when we went to Northern Territory. And he mustered cattle. He was that was just for just a window.
Trying something different.
Trying something different. We had family up there who were doing it, and in the documentary we end up back in the Aboriginal community we lived in, and the couple of the guys, they called him. They said he's a Chuck Norris looking motherfucker because he had this long ponytail, and he would pull cattle down by the tail and tie them up. And
I love a male Rapunzel.
Male Rapunzel.
There's nothing I love more, brother. Oh, that's beautiful, dude. And child protection, what exactly is that?
Yeah, he would to children who were, neglect, family violence, abuse, go into the home and basically have to, assess the situation, present evidence to a court, talk to the police department and work out, what should happen and is this child in a safe position or not. And huge responsibility and I watched the toll that took on him over the years when he just couldn't. There were certain things he wasn't able to fix, and it was, and you do solve one thing and feel like you were, had momentum, and then the next day there's, a big pile of other cases on the desk, and so but very much in service to others, and has always been fiercely protective of kids. Has this sort of angelic sort of quality to his
we'll hire him.
Integrity. He's ready and willing.
Look, I bet we could get him 30% of the vote right now in America to be our next president. If we have somebody that's protective of children here, we'll take it, man. And thank you for your service, Craig. I think that stuff like that is so important. Thinking about the well-being of children. I think there's nothing that's more. It's like the purest thing that exists in the world.
Absolutely.
I think. Yeah. And so thank you for your service. We appreciate that. Are there things where you want to, like when you're relating with your dad, are there things you want to make sure that he knows now? Like is there a responsibility that you feel as a child that it's like, okay, how do I make sure he's okay?
Yeah.
Like, does that make any sense?
Yeah. And I think from having kids as well.
And even for other people that are experiencing this, like since you've had experience with it, like if you could just maybe share a little bit of that.
So when I had the premiere in back in Australia, I had someone come up to me afterward.
For Crime 101?
No, sorry, for the documentary with my dad.
For Limitless.
A road trip to remember.
Say it again.
A road trip to remember.
Got it.
And someone come up to me and he said, I was diagnosed around the same time your dad was, and I wish my kids could see this because no one asks me how I am or what I'm afraid of or what I'm experiencing because people are nervous. They don't know how to discuss it, so they dance around it and pretend it's not happening. And he goes, so you suffer in silence. And the biggest thing I think that has helped that my dad has responded to, and I'm thankful for having gotten to this place, is asking him how he's feeling about it, because it's, you talk to your parents about this stuff and then your parents pass away and then who do you talk to? And it hit me that, God, he doesn't have his dad to go and have these hard conversations or these vulnerable moments with, or his mum anymore. And so trying to give him that space, but also I know I remember 15 years ago, that transition of when him realizing he wasn't the authority, and we as young men now working and knew more about things and weren't seeking his advice as much. I remember seeing that on his face and it not registering enough for me to do anything about it, but kind of being aware that like the changing of the guard was occurring. And so I go to him now and I'll ask him things that I may know the answer to, or just so he feels like there is still agency and he has autonomy and they want to see, thank you, they want to feel like they still matter and there's still a purpose.
That's a good point. You don't think about that when that change in the guard happens, that there's a value loss or potential like hypothesized value loss for the parent. Oh,
for sure. And I, even my kids, my daughter's 13, my boys are 11, and I'm already feeling that like, I'm not cool and I'm not necessarily who they look to. And it's like, and they're young. But
they're watching Andrew Tate or whatever.
Yeah, they're watching all sorts of bullshit and have other role models. But it's like, I think, and then I'm 42, but I can't imagine in the 60s, 70s when that gap becomes, far greater, and especially facing, having dementia and realizing your memories are being stripped away and that vulnerability, that just making sure they still feel like that they are of purpose and that they have an opinion and the opinion matters. And so, if anyone's going through it, that would be my advice, is check in with them, ask them how they're feeling, ask them what they're afraid of. Because no one
That's
asked
such a
them
great question. What are you afraid of? Yeah. Instead, I could just, it's easy to say, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing.
And that
as
won't bring out the answer. Like I asked him on the show and he went, I just don't want to be a burden.
Oh.
And it was like, oh, fuck. And I had no idea that he'd felt that. I thought it was going to be about the kind of, losing, control of this and that and the other. But it was like he was more concerned with what it was going to do to the group.
Yeah, that's what my mom says sometimes. I don't want to be any burden.
Yeah.
And it makes me think like, oh yeah, like, I don't know. And in some ways I've always wanted my mom to be like a burden. Like, I don't know, like the inverse of a burden, kind of whatever that is, like a positive burden. Or just like, I don't know.
Like a
it's all
beautiful
connection.
responsibility or But like
but for that to say, yeah, I don't want to be a burden.
Do you find that it gives you purpose though? Like it's like having this time with him, as kind of confronting as it's been, has also given me a greater sense of like what matters, and also it's like the roles do transfer, and at a certain point as an adult you got to realize, oh, I now need to take care of them,
right?
And and especially men, I don't know, but in Australia there's a real like avoidance around that sort of vulnerability or the sort of admittance to, I may be afraid of something or I need a hand. And so offering that up rather than having to get them to come to you and say, please check in with me.
That's a huge thing. Yeah. What are you afraid of?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's really what I want to know probably.
Yeah.